Howdy, howdy. How's everybody doing on this Friday? We're going to get some people in here. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Should be live. Let me know if you can't hear me, can't see me, anything like that, let me know. This is our Friday live stream, and I will be answering your guys' questions about nutrition, about the app, etc. Happy Friday to you, Austin. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully everybody's got some amazing weather. It's actually very beautiful here in Michigan today. So it's a little cold, but I can deal with that. Ready for summer. Hey there. What's up, Lewis? All right, looks like we got some questions on YouTube already, so I'm just going to get to answering some right now. So, hi, Keith. Does high variable activity cause issues for carbon to get a handle on your metabolism? I train some weeks several days and other weeks almost none, depending on how my life is each week. Also throwing in my request with lots of other users for a diet break option in the app. Thanks for the question, Steve. So high variability in any metric really is going to cause potential issues in the app, and that's why we really look at averages whenever we can, so that tends to smooth things out a little bit. And with high variability in your energy expenditure, that's another thing where, yeah, it can throw things off a little bit in the app. But as long as you are consistent over an extended period of time with being inconsistent, if that makes sense, like if it's going to work out and find your average regardless. So if there's some weeks where it's high, some weeks where it's low, it's really going to all balance out over time. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, like ideally you can be consistent. The more you can be consistent with diet, exercise, all these variables, the smoother the whole process is going to be in terms of making progress towards your goal. And that's with anything really. Like the more consistent you can be with anything in life, the better off you're going to be. So just try to aim to be a little bit more consistent if you can. Otherwise, just make sure you're weighing often, doing all those types of things so that the app can really look at the averages. And yeah, so hopefully that helps. Speaking of the diet break option, Lerone, so what's up with the new situation on diet breaks with the app now? So there's not really a new situation. We don't have a diet break feature in the app. So currently, if you want to do diet breaks, you have to do something specific to make the app work for diet breaks. So it's not like we have a supported feature where you can just hit a diet break and the app will do everything for you. So first, I want to start off and say diet breaks are not required at all. You can diet straight. You can do all that type of stuff. You don't have to do diet breaks. Diet breaks seem to be the new quote unquote fad in fitness and stuff. So, but I think they do have their merit, but I think a lot of people, I think they get overused for some people, but they could be very beneficial for other people. So if you want to do a diet break and you know what a diet break is, in order to implement that in the app, I posted in the group like a step-by-step of what you need to do to do a diet break with the app. And this is the way that we recommend it because we don't have a specific feature for it. So first, you would need to switch your goal over to maintain weight. So you'll do that first if you want to take a diet break week. Switch it to maintain weight. Have the app use your current estimated metabolism. You'll be on the diet break for 7 to 14 days, whatever you want to do for a diet break. If you want to do it a week, you want to do it 2 weeks, you decide. But before you check in, so if you're going to do 2 weeks, don't check in on day 7. And you would, on day 14, instead of checking in, what you would do is you would change your goal back to weight loss. And so if you do it before you check in, the app is going to look back at your data from the fat loss and use that estimated maintenance. So you'll want to, when you switch it, have it use your estimated maintenance for the new fat loss goal. And the weight that you enter for that, it's probably best to enter your average weight if you know it, so that there's a little less variability when you do check in the first time back on your weight loss goal. So I think that's going to be the best situation currently for what we have. Like I said, we want to do something in the future where we have a specific feature around diet breaks so that it makes it a little more easy. But if you do want to implement it, you certainly can in the app, and that's how I would do it. So great question. All right, Instagram, let's see what we got. How does the app calculate if you're losing weight? Does it take a mean or median, or how does it account for outliers? So that's a great question, Jacob. Depending on the week that you're in, the app does different things. So if you are on the first week of a new goal, the app is going to look at your starting weight that you entered when you created your goal, and then your first check-in on day 7 or whatever day you check in. It's going to evaluate those 2 weights only, because that's really all the data that it can have. Some people are like, why doesn't it look at the average weight for that week? Well, the average weight, you would be double counting weights if you looked at the average weight on day 7. So your first check-in, it's going to look at your start weight and then your check-in weight on day 7. After that, that's when things get interesting, and the app actually can look at averages. So on your second week check-in, the app's going to look at, okay, what was the difference in my average weight from the first week, average weight from the second week, and it's going to compare those two and determine if that is within tolerance of the setting that you have applied to your account. And then week 3, it even gets more sophisticated. Week 3 and up, as long as you're compliant, it gets more sophisticated, and the app actually looks at compares averages of your weights for the weeks, as well as the trend over time. So it'll make sure that it's keeping that trend where you have set. So that's kind of how the app evaluates if you're losing weight and if you're reaching your weight loss goal, and then it adjusts your macros to get those numbers where we want to see them. So I'm guessing this is regarding the diet break thing. Do I have to wait for check-in before I change to maintenance, or can this be done at any time? So you can change your goal at any time in the app. So you don't have to wait for like a check-in to come around. You could change it at any time. So whenever you want to take the diet break, just change your goal to maintenance. Now, let's say you change your goal midweek. It's going to be like 10 days or so until your next check-in. So depending on what day you change your goal, the app always keeps your check-in day the same. So you can set your preference on your check-in day in settings. And no matter what day you check in, or what day you change your goal, it always has you check in on check-in day. So the minimum amount of days that the app will let you check in is 5 days in between check-ins. And we really need at least 5 days of data to be able to make a proper adjustments and recommendations. So the app has a minimum of 5 days for each check-in, but outside of that, like, yeah, if you check in midweek, some weeks you might have 14 days or 13 days till your next check-in. Like, it all depends on what day you change your goal and what day you have set as your preference for check-in day. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, back to Facebook, YouTube. Kim is asking, hi, if I end fat loss, how long should I stay in maintenance before going to reverse? Thank you. So you don't have, you could instantly switch from fat loss over to a reverse diet setting. There's no problem with that at all. And when you do switch your goal to reverse, the app starts you out at your estimated maintenance. So where the app has determined you will maintain your current weight, and that's based on check-in data and that kind of stuff. So you could switch right from fat loss to reverse dieting. Now, you may want to go to maintenance and have like a short maintenance break in there if you don't necessarily want to start increasing calories. You just want to hold steady for a couple weeks and then do it. So like more of a mental break, you can certainly do that. But if you've been dieting for a really long time, you may want to just go right to a reverse because because your metabolism is going to be suppressed from dieting, and just staying low in calories for an extended period of time is probably not a good idea. So usually after a longer fat loss phase or a fat loss phase where your metabolism is slowed down, you want to kind of undo all of that stuff. So usually you go fat loss to reverse. You don't usually do a maintenance phase in between, but it's completely up to you. You can do it if you want that mental break in between. All right. Would you recommend diet breaks every 3 to 4 weeks to keep the coach as accurate as possible? I personally only recommend diet breaks for people that it works well with their psychology and it helps them and they find benefit from it. There's not really a huge benefit physiologically or anything like that with diet breaks. It's going to extend your dieting period for a longer period of time. So if you're okay with dieting for a longer period of time and having those 1 week break every so often to break it up a little bit, that's completely fine. I see diet breaks work great for people that are leaner, more competitor type people. For Gen Pop people, like I really try to stress being consistent and being able to stick with a plan for an extended period of time. If you're constantly switching to diet break because, I can't be consistent, like I think you need to fix your consistency problem first and not do a diet break. Be able to hit certain macro targets for many weeks in a row, and then once you kind of build up that skill of being able to be consistent, then you can start introducing diet breaks if you want that mental break and that type of thing. So but usually 3 to 4 weeks. Usually people diet break every 3 to 4 weeks for like a week or so. And so if you do it like every other week, that's really going to screw up the app, in my opinion. So I would probably keep it to every 3 to 4 weeks, and that shouldn't cause issues if you do it how I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream. So can I start mark compliant if my calories, protein are in range? If so, does this have adverse effects in my weight loss goal? So Raphael, it's completely up to you how strict you want to be and how you want to determine compliance. The app determines compliance based on hitting all macros, but there's not going to be any big difference if you're hitting calories and protein versus hitting all the macros. So carbs and fats really are a preference thing. You can shift those however you want. It says somebody said I had a bad connection, but let me know if anybody else is having issues seeing me, hearing me, that type of thing. Hope it's not me. Hope it's just your Wi-Fi or something. But let me know if you guys have issues seeing me, hearing me. So what I was saying was carbs and fats are really a preference thing. Okay, so it's everybody's saying good connection. Must be you then. Sorry. Check your Wi-Fi. But so carbs and fats are really a preference thing. So that's not going to really dictate how much body fat you lose or anything like that. One thing a varying carb and fat intake can do is it can really cause your weight to be a little more inconsistent. So if your carb and fat ratio is shifting a lot, like week to week or day to day, that's going to cause differences in fluid balance because more carbs, more glycogen, more water with that glycogen. So if you're constantly varying your carb and fat intake, that can cause the scale to do some funny things. But if you're taking daily weights, entering that into the app. The app can look at the average, and that's not a huge deal. But back to your question about compliance, protein and calories are going to be by far like the most important thing for you to do and to be compliant. So you can mark compliant if you're okay with that. I personally would be fine with marking compliant, but like I said, it's up to you. The app considers compliance hitting all the macros though. All right, Denise, how should I track alcohol in the app? So if you guys have been tracking for a while, you notice that alcohol, if you search for a food, alcohol has calories, but then if you look at the nutrition facts, like, oh, it really doesn't have much fat, doesn't have much carbs, depending on what the alcohol is, and then much protein. So where do those macronutrients come from? Well, alcohol is actually another macronutrient, but it's not listed on food labels, so it's not going to be in the database. Alcohol, it's not going to say like, oh, there's 20 grams of alcohol in here, but there is alcohol in there, and that is a macronutrient, and that has calories as well. So alcohol is 7 calories per gram, and and since we don't have like an alcohol gram allowance per day, you need to track those calories somehow. And the way that we recommend you do that is to just allocate those calories to either carbs or fats. I wouldn't suggest doing it to protein, because protein is very important that you reach that target every day. But you can use some of your carb and fat calories to cover that alcoholic drink. So the way that you would do that is you would find the calories in the drink that you consumed. Let's say, for easy math, let's say it's 100 calorie. You had a 100 calorie beer, and you want to track that. 100 calories. You divide that by if you divide that by 4, meaning you would want to count it as carbs. You would use your carbs to count for that drink. You divide it by 4, and that would be 25 grams. So you would track 25 grams of carbs to have a 100 calorie beer. And that's how you would track it as carbs. You could also track it as fat, which you would divide the total calories by 9, because there's 9 calories per gram of fat. And so divided by 9, and that's like 11-ish grams of fat for having one drink. So that's how you would count it. You can also do a combination of carbs and fats. So you do half of the calories from carbs, half of the calories from fats. It's all up to you based on your preference and what you have for the day. So if you budget like, oh, I know I'm going to go out and have a few drinks with friends, I'm going to save 30 grams of fat so that I can have 3 drinks or so. You can do that. It all just depends on how you want to track it. So that's how I would track alcohol in the app. And then specifically for the app, you would just create or you could quick add the grams of carbs or fats you want to track it as. You can also create a custom food for like alcohol. I know some people create a custom food, and then they just can say like, oh, I had 1 drink, 2 drinks, whatever, and it'll allocate those to carbs and fats. Completely up to you, but that's how I would track alcohol in the app. Hopefully that helps you. Such detailed answers. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Try to explain things in an easy way for anybody to understand. So sometimes I might talk a lot, but I want to kind of give like the background of my answers so that mostly everybody can understand it. So what would you suggest for those who go over calories but are off by a significant amount of protein? Well, it sounds like you need to prioritize protein. Make sure that you are eating enough. So my suggestion would be to audit your current diet, look at all the foods that you're eating, look at quick wins of where you can get some more protein. So like making some food swaps for some higher protein options. You might also just need to add in more high protein sources in your diet, like add in some meat or something like that, so you can actually reach your protein target. But it's going to take planning. Like that's the only thing you can do is just plan to have more protein. You got to find high protein sources. You got to eat them regularly. Make sure you're staying on track. One of the biggest things is to make sure that you have a good amount of protein in every single meal. So don't have a single meal where it's low protein. Make sure every single meal is built around a protein source. Like when I think about what I'm going to eat, I first think about, okay, what's my protein source for this meal going to be? And then I build the rest of the meal around it. So like, oh, I want to have chicken for dinner tonight. Okay, now what meal can I make with chicken and what sounds good? So then I build everything else around it. So think about what's my protein source and how much protein do I need per meal. An easy way to figure out how much protein you need per meal, like, and set a meal target for yourself, is to take your total grams of protein that you're supposed to hit each day, divided by the number of meals that you want to eat per day. And then you have a protein meal target that you can aim to hit as well. So you don't have to just aim to hit the daily target. You can break it down into individual meal targets if you want. And I find that that helps people stay on track and not get too behind with protein. All right. Let's see. So what does the percentage mean on your weekly planner, on your calorie planner, if you change calories for specific days? So great question. That percentage number that you see on the calorie planner is the percent above or below the macro targets that the coach has set for you. So if you have a high day, it might say, 5%. That means you're 5% above the macros that the coach recommended to you for that day. So then the other days would need to make up for that surplus of 5% of calories, and it would do that by reducing those. So then there would be, if you do it in just one day, there would be another day that's negative 5%. So it always is going to balance out to zero. So you can see, okay, this day was a high day because it was a 10% surplus in calories, and then this day was a low day. It was 2% down from my baseline calories. So that's what that percentage number is. All right. I messed up tracking and new to the app for a couple weeks. Should I reset the app or start where I am? Really, there's very rarely any scenario where I recommend somebody resets their app. We put it in there just because some people want to completely reset the coach and start fresh, like if they're a new user. But really, there's no benefit of doing that. But we put it in there just so people, to make some people happy. But I would recommend just starting where you're at. Like, you don't need to reset. So resetting doesn't reset like the tracker or anything like that. Reset only resets the coach. So if you have check-ins or you created goals with the coach, that's what a reset will do. It'll completely clear out all of that data and start fresh with the coach. So I wouldn't do that. All right. All right, let's see here. Thanks for doing these lives. Been on fat loss for 3 weeks and after reverse, and have lost 7 pounds so far. That's amazing. Nice progress. I'm on plant-based, doing fat loss. I often get to the end of the day with not enough protein, but hitting calories pretty spot on. Is it better to go over around 100 calories for an extra 22 grams of protein? So it depends if you have macro calories enabled. So if you don't have macro calories enabled, I would make sure you're hitting your protein target and your carb and fat target. So don't worry about where the calories fall. But if you are on macro calories and you're like 100 calories over, for that day, I would just stop eating for that day, I guess. I mean, it sucks that you're low on protein, but calories are king, and then protein is the next step up. So you don't want to like do something that'll negatively impact the calories that you're consuming. So you're kind of, yeah, I would hit the calories first. That's going to be your priority number one. So calories, energy balance, most important. Then you got protein is very important. Very important. That's a very close second. These are very two important steps. And then above that, you have carbs and fats and those types of things that have a lot less impact on the progress that you make. So prioritize what's most important. Calories, and then protein, and that type of thing. The app estimates. Wait, hold on. I skipped a couple here. How do you track high fiber items by macros or calories? Macro counts literally double the calories. Thank you. Love the app. So this is kind of like speaking to it's like net carb type things, and I would always count total carbs. If you have a system that you stick to in a consistent way, you're tracking things, that's what's going to be most important. So if you always count total carbs, regardless of it's coming from sugar or if it's coming from fiber, always counting total carbs, and then making sure you hit a minimum fiber amount, that's what's going to be the best, in my opinion, because then you don't need to sweat about all these small details of, oh, this had this much fiber, so then fiber only has 3 calories per gram, and this and that. That's overthinking things way too much. Just count total carbs and make sure that you are hitting a certain fiber threshold every single day. That's what I recommend. And the next question will be like, how much fiber do I need per day? Well, it depends on if you're male or female, if you are how many calories you're consuming, that type of thing. So for females, I typically recommend anywhere from like 20 to 30 grams of fiber per day. Males, more like 30 to 40 or something like that. If you want to base it off the calories that you're consuming, you take the total calories and you figure 14 or 15 grams of fiber for every 1,000 calories. So if you're consuming 2,000 calories a day, you would need to aim for 28 to 30 grams of fiber every day. So those are two different ways you can figure out how much fiber you need, and I would make sure that you're hitting that every day. Okay, so the app estimates my maintenance at 25, 27, but has me eating 2150 to maintain. My weight has been dropping. Why is there a disconnect? So the app estimates your maintenance based on checking data, and it uses what you're consuming versus what's happening with your weight to back calculate your estimated maintenance. Now, the reason why we don't always use that, for example, in your case, the app's telling you to eat 2150. The reason why we don't use the other one is because it's based, there's a lot more variability and a lot more chance of error. What the app does is it sets you on a certain target, and then it will, for maintenance, it will adjust that target to keep you in that desired range. So there's a disconnect in those numbers because one is what the coach is actually recommending you eat, and then it looks at what's happening, and then it kind of spits out where it thinks your maintenance is. And so the disconnect is because we don't want to use that estimated maintenance every single week. We want to start in a certain place and adjust up or down depending on how your body responds. So hopefully that makes sense. Probably sounded a little confusing, but the estimated maintenance is more informational. It's not like, I wouldn't take that as gospel and as that's where your maintenance is at, but it's a general vicinity of where your maintenance is at. And if you have very few check-ins, that number is going to also be not as accurate. So if you have anywhere from like if you have 1, 2, or 3 check-ins, like that number is not going to be super accurate, and that's why we don't use it. Over the course of time, and you do more and more check-ins, that number is going to get more and more accurate until those two numbers are really going to come together. So if you stay on that maintenance setting for let's say a year, those two numbers that you're seeing are going to be like dead on with each other at some point. So over time, they're going to come, the gap is going to tighten, and it's going to be more and more accurate. Let's see. Should you weigh every day? Depends. If weighing doesn't screw with your psychology and you are fine to weigh every day, I would definitely recommend weighing every day and entering that into the app, because the app is going to have more data to work with. It's going to be more accurate. But some people really struggle weighing every day because they see that number and goes up one day and then it goes down and then it comes back up. Like, people really stress out about that number. I would try to work through those issues and try to get over that, because weighing daily is going to help a ton in the accuracy of the app and that kind of thing. All right. Great questions today, guys. Appreciate all these questions. Let's see. Can I ask, what role do genes play in losing weight? A huge role. Genetics really dictate a lot of things, and your ability to lose weight, keep it off, that type of thing is going to be largely based on your genetics. Some people have better genetics than others, but no matter how bad your genetics are, that doesn't mean you can't make progress towards your goal. So it's not like a death sentence where you will not be able to lose weight or you will not be able to reach your goal because of your genetics. It's not something that's going to hold you back like that. It's just, it may take longer for you to reach your goal. It may be a little bit more difficult for you versus somebody else, but that doesn't mean you can't make progress. Now, you can't change physical things about, like, you can't change your bone structure or stuff like that, your muscle insertions, so you can't change like where your muscles are inserted and the appearance of that, but you can definitely lose body fat, you can definitely build more muscle, but your genes are going to really dictate that final kind of shape and stuff. How do you know if you should choose keto, low fat, low carb? So all of those are diet preferences. So if you prefer a keto diet, and following a keto diet can make you be more consistent, and that's your lifestyle, by all means choose keto. Same thing for low fat, low carb. Whatever your diet preference is, what you prefer, the meals you like to eat, that's what the diet preference setting is for. You're not going to make more progress on keto versus low fat versus low carb. It's not going to happen. Those are for consistency. So to help you be more consistent with your goal. So choose a diet preference that fits well with the foods that you like to eat, and so that you can budget foods properly and that type of thing. I personally just use like the balanced. Balanced is a good middle of the road diet preference, where it's a nice balance of carbs and fats for how most people tend to eat food. When comparing carbs and fats, which is more thermogenic after protein, it's going to be carbs, but the difference between carbs and fats is pretty minimal. There's a huge difference between protein and carbs and fats. So that's why protein is so important, because that really impacts your the energy balance equation, and eating a higher protein diet can help you burn more calories through thermogenesis. So that's why calories and protein are often recommended, because yes, they're more thermogenic. Protein is more thermogenic. Carbs and fats, carbs are a little more than fat, but it's minimal, and it's not going to really, I don't think it really pans out to be any different, because studies show differences in low fat versus low carb diets. They're very similar weight loss. There's no significant difference in the amount of weight lost. So it really comes down to calories and protein over the long run for body fat loss. Just joined today, hit calorie spot on, but protein high, so it affects carbs and fats. Was I compliant for the day? So I wouldn't look at compliance on a daily level. I don't think that's good. I think look at compliance on a weekly, so you can budget for higher and lower. So you went over on protein today. That's fine. Just tomorrow, go and make sure you hit your protein target, but adjust for those calories with carbs and fats, which you're doing today. So it sounds like, so you're eating lower carbs and fats, but tomorrow, make sure you're trying to hit your targets a little closer. And by not looking at compliance on a daily basis, that kind of shifts your mindset into not this all or nothing thinking. Like some people, they're like, oh, I screwed up, I'm not compliant today, then they just go off the rails. I think that's bad. I think if you look at it, oh, I overate today, but I can always adjust the rest of my week to make up for that, and I can still be compliant. So it's not like this switch of you're compliant, you're not compliant. Like you can adjust it and use the calorie planner to do some high days, do some low days, to do that in the app. So yeah. Where do you enter weight every day? You can do it in on the coach tab. There's an add weight button towards the top. You can add your weight every day there. You can also add it in the me section. So if you go to me, there are charts of like your diet, like your calories, protein, carbs, fats, your weight, body fat, that type of thing. If you go into your weight, you can add weight from there as well. So there's multiple places where you can do that. Can you change the check-in day? Yes. You go to settings, coach, check-in day. And you can change it to any day of the week that you want. How to do carb cycling for fat loss. Carb cycling is not for fat loss. It doesn't help you lose any more body fat when calories are equated. If you want to carb cycle, you're going to have to probably figure that out on your own, because the calorie planner in the app adjusts based on calories and your diet preference. So it doesn't just you can't solely adjust your carbs and do like, oh, I want to eat 100 carbs this day and then I want to eat 300 carbs the next day. You can't do that in the app. It goes based on the high low days go based on calories, and then it allocates those calories based on your diet preference. But yeah, the main theme is carb cycling is not for fat loss. It can be a strategy used for athletes for performance reasons and those types of things. But when calories are equated, carb cycling does not produce more body fat loss. Any plan to fix the bug on Android when sliding across the days when checking your averages? I didn't know there was a bug. If there's a bug, we would appreciate if you report that to us. Send us a support ticket at support@joincarbon.com and ask the support staff to bring that bug to our attention, and we'll look into it. Is there a Facebook support group? Yes, absolutely. The Carbon Diet Coach Facebook group is amazing. So just search for groups, Carbon Diet Coach, and it should come up. Let's see. Got some on YouTube here. So, if making my protein macro and I have leftover carbs, fats towards the end of the day, I'm tempted to eat foods like ice cream or to make the macro. Bad idea, or just take the reduced calories for the day. You can certainly have foods like ice cream or whatever you want. If sometimes in order to hit those macros by the end of the day, you might need to include some of those foods. But I think the majority of your diet really should come from whole, nutrient-dense foods. So when I say majority, I say like 80 to 90% of your calories should probably come from a whole type of foods. But the other, 10 to 20% discretionary calories, completely fine. You can have things like ice cream. You can do any of that as long as it fits into your macros. So if you stick to that like 80-20 rule, you'll be getting enough fiber still. You'll be eating plenty of nutrient-dense foods, getting plenty of vitamins and minerals. So there's nothing to worry about there. So no, I wouldn't say it's a bad idea. You can eat ice cream. Go ahead if it fits into your day and you would want to do that. Otherwise, if you want to take a reduced calorie day and then have a higher day later in the week, you can do that too. So it's completely up to you. There's a lot of flexibility in that, Steve. So just do what you want, but don't stress about having some ice cream if you want to have some ice cream. All right. I don't understand that question. I'm new to weight loss journey, but isn't a calorie deficit, whether keto, low carb, paleo, etc., so long as you are in a calorie deficit, will help you lose weight? So what I think you're saying is, is a calorie deficit the most important thing, and does it really matter if I'm keto, low carb, paleo, etc., as long as I'm creating a calorie deficit? So yeah, you're right. Like a calorie deficit is really what dictates the success of your diet and losing weight. And so you can do that in many different ways. Like you mentioned, keto, low carb, paleo, all of these methods can also put you in a calorie deficit. So they're not tied together. Like you could be in a surplus on keto and you can also be in a deficit on keto. You can be surplus on paleo, deficit on paleo. Like those are two different things. So if you want to lose weight, you need to create a calorie deficit. Now, if you want to lose more body fat and not necessarily lose as much muscle, that's where the composition of your diet also becomes important. So you want to have a higher protein diet if you want to lose more body fat in that weight lost. But still, calorie deficit is still king. That dictates what's going to happen with energy balance and losing weight. So yeah, make sure you're creating a calorie deficit and staying in a calorie deficit over an extended period of time, and that's how you are going to lose weight. Is it good to take time off training every now and then? Time completely off, it just depends. I mean, if you need a mental break, maybe, but you can also do deloads where you take a light week in training and that helps you fully recover so that you can hit it hard again. So, but taking time off every now and then, not a huge deal. 1 week's fine. If you're worried about losing muscle by taking a week off, it's not going to happen. Losing muscle takes a longer period of time, multiple weeks. So maybe like 2-3 weeks. If you take 2-3 weeks off of training, then I start worrying a little bit more about muscle loss. But taking a single week off completely from training, it's really not going to cause you to lose any muscle or anything like that. And it can help you fully recover. You might notice that if you take a week completely off, you are weaker when you come back. And that's why I typically recommend doing a deload instead of taking a week completely off. So if you do a deload, you're still using those motor patterns and those motor units, and your body will still kind of keep its strength. If you take too much time off, you're going to notice that the exercise feels a little new to you when you come back, and then you're a little bit weaker on it. So just maybe do a deload week and frequency of deload. I personally deload every 4 to 6 weeks. That helps me recover enough so that I can hit it hard for another 4 to 6 weeks. And I've noticed about 4 to 6 weeks is the sweet spot where I can make progress over an extended period of time. So that's what I do. I deload every 4 to 6 weeks. And yeah, hope that helps. I kind of answered that one already. Let's see. Is there a way to see your compliance range, what you see at check-in, before check-in, or refer back to it? If you're asking about like the range on the check-in screen, like that range that it shows there, that's really the only place that you can see it, but you can see your data in the Me tab. So if you want to look at, oh, what was my average calories last week, you go to the Me tab, you can see that easily. But if you want to see those specific ranges on protein, carbs, fats, calories, and how it compares to your diary, the check-in screen is really the only place you can see that. And I hear some people in the group are like, oh, just pretend like you're going to check in, and then you can see it, and then you can just back out. So, I mean, if you really want to see it, you can do that. Just don't complete the check-in and you can see it. But I guess it'd be nice for us to know, like, why you want to see those numbers when you're not checking in, you know, because if you're using the calorie planner and you know your macro targets, like, what's the benefit of seeing those numbers outside of a check-in? I don't know. So it might be nice to hear some more information on that. Can you clarify the difference between label and macro calories and when to use each? By default, the app uses label calories, which is what you see on the label, and any food product you look at, that's what the default in the app is. We introduced the macro calorie feature for people that really want to zero out those numbers. So they want to hit protein, carbs, fats, and calories and have them all zero out. The reason why you can't zero them out if it's on label calories is because of rounding in food labels, the difference in how the calories are determined for foods. They use something called the bomb calorimeter, and that's what they determine the calories from. But then they use a different method to determine the macros in it. So there's always a discrepancy there. And if you want to get rid of that discrepancy and rounding issues and all that, macro calories feature can be nice. But the only caveat is, like, then anytime you look at a food label, it's not going to match the calories. But the benefit is, if you have macro calories, then you can do things like, oh, I want to make sure I'm hitting calories and protein and not necessarily worry about where my carbs and fats lie. You can do that and still be super accurate with the app on macro calories, whereas you can't really do that if the app is on label calories. So yeah, macro calories are more of like a kind of advanced power user type feature. People that have been flexible dieting for a while really enjoy the macro calories feature. But if you're new and don't really understand it, maybe just stick to label calories, which is the default. But if you want to learn more about the differences in the two and the benefits and caveats and that type of thing, go to the Help Center. We have an article on macro calories that you can visit there. So joincarbon.com/help. And you can just search for macro calories, and then the article will pop up there. So I would check that out. All right. Sorry, I was reading here. When reverse dieting, will the app tell you when it's time to change your goal? So when you're on a reverse diet setting, the app will tell you when it appears your metabolism is in a good place. So it'll prompt you and say, hey, it looks like your metabolism's in a good place. You can switch goals if you want. It will prompt you, but will never change the goals for you. So we have it set up so the app never changes goals for you. We want that to be your decision of when you change goals. So it will let you know, though, your metabolism looks like it's in a good place. And yeah, so it's up to you. If you want to change the goal, then you can change it, or you can keep going. Some people notice, hey, it says my metabolism is in a good place, but I'm not gaining any weight and I'm increasing calories. I'd like to stick on the reverse diet setting. You can certainly stay on that longer if you want. So it's completely up to you. I wonder why this question comes up so much. Why do people wonder about maintenance after fat loss and then reverse? So I'm sure you had this question a lot, but would you suggest doing maintenance after a fat loss and then a reverse diet to get calories up? I recommend going from fat loss to reverse diet. Reverse diet setting is going to start you out at your estimated maintenance. You don't want to stick around at low calorie intakes. And if you have a suppressed metabolism from dieting, your maintenance calories are going to be low. If you go on maintenance, it's going to stay low. Like, you're not going to rebound your metabolism if you're on the maintenance setting after a fat loss. So go from fat loss to reverse diet. Now, if you want a mental break or whatever for a few weeks, you could go to maintenance, but I wouldn't stick on maintenance for a while unless your metabolism's in a good place. So like, if you didn't diet for super long, you could go from fat loss to maintenance. So it all depends on, I guess, where your metabolism is at the end of your diet, but generally speaking, you want to go fat loss to reverse. You're welcome. All right, so let's see. Great questions today, guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully this has been helpful. We do these every Friday. So Lane, Holly, and I do these every Friday. So be sure to tune in every single Friday. We answer questions like this that you have about the app, about nutrition. All right, Steve's got a question here on YouTube. Sweeteners like stevia I use have no calories, so does not count towards any macros, but do you know if they have an effect on weight loss efforts in any way? So if they don't have calories, they're not going to have an effect on weight loss efforts. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. All right. That's all I need to say about that. Been on slow weight loss for the past 12 weeks, lost a little bit over 12 pounds. Nice work. That's nice and sustainable weight loss right there. But waist measurement hasn't changed. Ideas. You could be just measuring it differently. Make sure you're measuring it in the same area. If the tape measure is just an inch off, it could be a wildly different result. So that's why I don't really like tape measure too much, because it really depends on your how you're measuring it. So I wouldn't worry too much. I would look at more, okay, how do I appear? What does it look like in the mirror? Does it look like I lost a lot of body fat or not? You look at the scale. Scale is showing you're making progress. You're down 12 pounds. Now just look at the mirror and be like, okay, how much of that was body fat? If you notice a big difference, a good amount of that was body fat. And yeah, otherwise, like, where you lose body fat is really dictated by your genetics, so that you really can't change that. So you just might be your genetics might just cause you to store more body fat in your waist, and you lost more body fat in your extremities and stuff. So it all depends on your genetics. You can't dictate where you're losing fat. So you might just have to diet more for it to come off on the midsection area. And yeah, so what it comes down to is just losing more body fat. You can't spot reduce body fat loss. Super helpful. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. In the planner, is there a way to see what you've consumed against the plan? Unfortunately not. You need to look at the diary to see what you actually consumed. Planner is just more of like a way to plan. So it shows you what your targets would need to be each day to stay on track with your average macros. So unfortunately, we don't show diary data in there. If you have a lot to lose, can you slide the app to aggressive, or will it cut your lean body mass too much? So the rate of loss that you set is a percentage. It's scaled to the individual because it's a percentage of your body weight each week. So just because you have a lot of weight to lose doesn't necessarily mean you need to slide it all the way to the top. That is like a rate of loss. So the middle of the road is probably going to be the best approach for most people. That's why it's in the middle. Being aggressive can work for a shorter period of time, but you can't be aggressive for a long period of time and not expect to lose a lot of lean body mass. So I would recommend being more conservative. Unless you're doing a mini cut, you could do a mini cut and be more aggressive. But if you have a lot of weight to lose, you probably should be a little bit more in the middle of the road there. You can also just start out aggressive and then change to a more conservative loss after 4 to 6 weeks or so. It's completely up to you, but I wouldn't be on a really aggressive loss for much more than like 4 to 6 weeks. Should we strength train while doing calorie restriction for fat loss? That's a good idea for sure. Strength training, weight training is going to help you retain more lean body mass as you're dieting, so that's going to be beneficial. So you lose more body fat. It'll change your shape a lot more if you're keeping that muscle around as you're dieting. So I would definitely recommend weight training while on a fat loss phase. I think I got time for like one more question, and then it's going to be kicking me off here soon. So let's see. I'll look for a good question here. So maybe I'll do 2 more. Okay, I'm a new member. Can you please let us know what to use or how to use the app in the beginning? So a really helpful place for you to visit is joincarbon.com/help. There are a ton of videos and articles and stuff to get you started. So that's what I would recommend is going there, reading, watching, learning about the app and the features and how to use it properly. So that's what I would recommend doing. And let's see, one more question. Thanks very much for your time today. Appreciate you tuning in, Steve, and all the great questions. Let's see. All right, one more question. What do you got for me? One more. I'll just take this one. Should I be making any adjustments to my carbon? So most of the time, sticking with the defaults in the app and just letting it do its thing is the best approach. If you're not sure what you're doing, don't change settings. Don't do all these fancy things with the app. Just go with the default, diet preference, default diet rate, all that type of thing. Only change things if you know what you're doing. I would, stick with the defaults as long as you can. And, we set the defaults at what's going to work best for most people. But if you know that something works best for you outside of that, then you can change it. So don't be adjusting things unless you need to, is my opinion with the app. We gave it a lot of thought and tried to set the app up in the best possible way for new users where they don't really have to think too much about how to set it up. and I would recommend going that route. So anyways, appreciate everybody tuning in. You guys are the best. If you are interested in learning more about Carbon, we have a website, joincarbon.com. For those that aren't members, you can check that out, learn more. We have a help center there that you can read, watch videos, do that type of thing. If you are not a member and you want to subscribe, you can download the app from either app store, the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store. We're available there. Subscription starting at $9.99 a month, and cheapest macro coaching that you'll get out there. If you pay a nutrition coach to do macros for you, it's going to be easily like 100 times what, 10 times the cost of, 10 to 20 times the cost of what Carbon is. So it's definitely a value for a lot of people. So if you enjoy the app, we appreciate positive reviews in the App Store as well. That helps us out a ton. So any of you guys that have left us great reviews in the App Store, we appreciate you very much. If you haven't, we would appreciate it if you go do that. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Like I said, we do these live streams every Friday, so be sure to tune in next Friday. I believe it is Lane next Friday. So if you want to ask Lane questions about the app and nutrition, be sure to tune in. All right, guys, I'm hopping off. Hope everybody has a great rest of their Friday and great weekend ahead. See you guys.